So you've torn your hamstring once, you may even torn it twice, you may even be hitting the hat trick of reoccurring hamstring strains. And if you are in that situation, then this video is for you. You will not be surprised that hamstring reoccurrence is really common in team sport athletes, with actually 20% of all injuries on the field are hamstring in nature. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through the 5 key areas that you need to be focusing on, which could be attributing to your hamstring reoccurrence. So I'm going to bust out the pens, we've got the whiteboard, and let's get going. So number one, okay, is going to be a lack of core stability. Okay, this is really important to understand the role of the trunk and the core with regards to the hamstring. And I'll break it down really simply for you today, but it's quite a complicated scenario. And we need to look at what I'm going to do is just draw a box, okay, and two other boxes. And there's the hips and the legs either side, and then that's the trunk, okay? And we'll look at it from the front and we'll look at it from the back. All right, and then we've got our legs coming underneath. What we have to do here is understand the role, a couple of things, of what's called sling functions. So here we've got a long sling that connects the shoulder to the hip, and we've also got a short sling that connects the shoulder to the hip. All right, now that, and then we've also got long ones that come all the way down from the shoulder to the legs, and we have this replicated on the front of the body as well. Okay, these are called myofascial slings, and what they do is they help manage the rotation, that when the leg comes up, the body keeps controlled. But what happens if we take our pelvis here, we want our pelvis when we're sprinting to be nice and flat if we can. We keep it level. But when we've got a weak core, and it's not a weak core with regards to not being able to do 100 sit-ups, a weak core is being able to control your pelvis. Because remember, when you're sprinting at top speed, you've got one leg out in front, one leg on the ground, and that's trying to get the pelvis to do all sorts of things forward and back. So the reason why the core is really important, and the core stability element, is that helps stop this rotation, because if that pelvis rotates forward like that, it puts that hamstring on so much excessive length, which will then put it under loads of load. And if it's got loads of load, dynamic load, it's going to get injured. And that may have been the root cause of your injury in the first place. So I'll just stop there for a second. If you comment hamstring on this post, I'm going to send you my proven roadmap of how to return hamstrings effectively from a speed-based approach. So comment hamstring on this video and I'll get a copy sent over to you. But let's break it out and get into number 2. So number 2 here, okay, is overstriding. Now what's really interesting is that there's kind of like, they do kind of complement one another, but sometimes from a technical point of overstriding, if I've got my athlete in this nice figure 4 position, you know, when we're up, we're running, boom, we're in this nice figure 4 position. Okay, what can actually happen, all right, is from a technical point of view, when we're in here, because we're not effective on the ground with this foot, we're trying to reach into the space, okay, with this foot to try and push our hip there. So we're trying to leap and so when we're trying to leap and put ourselves into the next step, we're creating a lot of excessive tension on that hamstring, which is going to cause it to reoccur again. So, you know, there's the first 2. Let's clean these off and get into number 3, 4 and 5, and we're going to smash these out really quick. So number 3 actually links to number 1, okay, and that is all to do with the glutes, okay, and this is the creation of muscle imbalance So if we, again, we've got our pelvis, we've got our knee, we've got our ankle, okay, and we've got our hip. So our glutes are massively important to the contribution of hip extension, okay? And if you were to think of it as a sliding scale of distribution, when we've got weak glutes, if we put our hamstrings there in our glutes, when our glutes don't fire well enough or they're not strong enough, the distribution of effort will shift towards the hamstring as opposed to somewhere being in the middle, which will then cause the hamstring to do more work than the glutes should be, which throws the whole situation off. So ensuring that the program that you're using really does address the glutes predominantly, which will then have a knock-on effect for the hamstrings because it has that downstream effect, is going to be really, really important. Okay, and then number 4, this is a big one, big one for reoccurrence rates of hamstring injuries, and that's asymmetry. All right, in strides. So what can happen, you think about this, when you've got a really bad injury. You know, I had 2 grade 3Cs and a partial tendon tear, so it's really important that you understand, this comes from someone with a lot of experience, is that the way that you run will change because you'll be in a state of protection and you'll be trying to protect that hamstring. So that's why it's really important to address all your fundamental speed mechanics works really early on in the program when you still are doing basic training, because that's going to help readdress that relationship. And whilst you may not feel like your gait is out or your mechanics are off, the load, as we talked about with the hamstring and the glutes, if you're doing too much with one side, you'll be compensating, and that's going to cause reoccurrence. Or it could even you may have torn one hamstring and then you've torn the other later down the line, and that's a typical state of asymmetry, a typical indicator of asymmetry and overcompensation. So the other one, again, and this ties in really, the number 5, the big one, all right, is, okay, again, it's poor mechanics, just in general. And for this one, because we've looked at a couple, let's focus on acceleration. All right, excuse my spelling. My dyslexia getting the better of me today. So what can happen in acceleration? It's very similar to the overstriding, but what can happen if my athlete, okay, this is the position that you want to be seen in acceleration, okay? When you've pushed out from a standing start, you've pushed into that position. What we will find, again, is that overreaching and that poor mechanics, okay, that hamstring, it ends up looking like this. All right, and you have to think about now, you think about the load, okay, the pulling, because as that foot hits the ground, you've almost got to drive yourself through and heel dig your way through, and that puts loads of load on the hamstring itself. So those are the 5 things. They may resonate with you. You may not have considered them before yet, but if you want my roadmap, if you want me to talk you through and show you all the things you need to be doing along the way for your hamstring return to play, return to speed, and make it successful, comment hamstring on this video and I will get that sent for you right away.